Welcome. It is time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I am here to let you know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. I'd further like you to understand that views expressed are those of the speakers, and I would also like to inform you that those views are not intended to represent WRFU, UCIMC, or the Urbana Socialist Forum, or, as we like to say on the TV version of this show, UPTV. These views, in other words, are our own. And by our in this instance, I mean myself and my charming guests who are arrayed before me across on that side of the room, who will hopefully introduce themselves to you one at a time so we get to know who is who. And
all right.
You need to grab the microphone and talk into it.
Okay, hi everybody out there in Radio Land. This is Susan Ogwal, and I am a PhD student at the University of Illinois. I'm here at Urbana-Champaign within the College of Education, and particularly within the Division of Global Studies. I am also a community organizer in which I am able to and have the privilege to be able to work with various international groups in town, as well as also serve the community as far as my employment also within the university as a research assistant. That's just a number of things. I guess you could sum it up in those three main areas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lakisha David. I'm a PhD student in urban and regional planning at the University of Illinois.
Hi everyone, I'm Efad Huq, a master's graduate student in urban planning. I'm also a student member in Planners Network, and through them I've begun to collaborate with CU Immigration Forum and New Americans Initiative at the YMCA. Thank you for having us, Tom.
Well, thank you for coming. Oh boy, I'm really loud. I should turn myself down. I appreciate you all squeezing yourself in here. Hopefully you're all on the camera. I don't know because I can't see it. So if somebody watches this later and they're like, wait a minute, I'm not on TV. Don't blame me, I have no camera person too.
I'm fine with being a voice without the body.
Oh, you're not a glory seeker, looking for fame and fortune? I don't think there's going to be much fame and fortune coming out of this, is my guess. Although UPT is a fine institution, and I'm sure many really motivated and intelligent people watch it, I don't think talent scouts or anything like that. I doubt if anybody like that is.
Tom, I'm a believer in hope. I'm a believer in divine destiny collisions. Okay. So you just never know what's going to happen and who's listening out there. So.
Well, okay. So you think maybe this is launching a career for you?
I wouldn't call it a career. Just points of opportunities to be able to share what needs to be. To speak as a voice. So this is just one of those many opportunities that's kind of come together. So
okay.
As I said, you never know.
I'll accept that. I think it's possible. I mean, after all, the internet is worldwide. So anybody from any country could be watching and could be going, I want that person. I want to make them a star.
That's right. We're here.
Yeah. Me, they're going to get sort of the back of my head, which is might be my left side, but I'm not sure. Anyway, welcome. You guys are all in the same project, is that right?
Right.
You've all been working on this same project, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've talked with several other people, including your charming professor, Harwood, about this project. So as I was mentioning before the show, that I've gone over some of this stuff many times, so I might forget to talk about some things just because I have spoken about it with several other people before. So do tell me, I guess, for the sake of the listener, viewer, or whatever, we should start again with what is this project? What are you doing exactly here?
Okay. Well,
just look at you.
Well, as others have already mentioned before, we're looking to we're strategically researching different areas in Urbana to look at the valuable contributions of immigrant business owners and immigrant businesses within town. We do realize that there is a wave, sort of say, within just talks of immigration in general, but we wanted, in this particular class, to look at the Follow District area, or we were assigned that area essentially, So in doing that, we've been able to gain some valuable insights from some of the owners within the pilot district.
Mm-hmm. So I guess when a lot of people hear about immigration, there's so much political baggage associated just with that term that the stereotype, I guess if I can put it that way, is of lower educated person coming here trying to find, taking jobs that Americans won't do. You've heard that expression so many times, like, well, these people will take the jobs Americans don't want to take and work for next to nothing, you know. That's like the kind version of when politicians are talking about immigrants. It's like, well, like, yeah, but you should feel sorry for them because they're taking the jobs Americans don't want. But that's not really, by any stretch of the imagination, the whole picture. That's one small portion.
Right.
Yes, there are a lot of people coming here washing dishes and working in the fields. We have a lot of migrant workers working on crops and stuff like that. But the people you're talking to, as a rule, are people who've come here and have started their own business, right? And who are employing people, and they are valuable members of the community.
That is correct.
In a financial sense, in a capitalist kind of way of looking at it.
That is correct. That is correct.
So that's a very different group, at least from the one that we have presented to us all the time. Why do you suppose that this is just ignored by the media? Is it just too convenient to like paint all immigrants in with the same brush, or what? What's going on here?
I don't know if I can really answer that question as to why the media is only showing like the negative stories or what they would want us to perceive as negative. So I don't know how to think about that for a moment.
I'll suggest a hypothesis.
Okay, good.
I'm wondering if this has to do with, we have this tendency in the media to always present crisis stories. We have this tendency to always dramatize things. In fact, create these melodramatic stories about, these waves of children just coming across the borders, and these farmers moving into our towns and cities, and so these very mythical narratives about how people are moving around, and also at the same time creating a portrayal of another group as somehow not like us, somehow subhuman, somehow not having the talents, the ability to do things for their own by themselves. So I think this goes on in the media. So this is only my hypothesis. So I think which is why they don't talk about it. Whereas if we were to focus on the kinds of groups that we're looking at now in this project, we see that these are very talented entrepreneurs. These are people who at their workplaces do multiple things. We met business owners who are painting their walls themselves, doing murals on their walls. At the same time, the person is a baker, and multi-talented people who are running these businesses, employing people, and contributing positively to the local economy. So I think these stories are more mundane. They don't sell, perhaps. So I don't know, what maybe you guys would add to that.
Well, I think I can certainly agree with that hypothesis. And I also believe that it's easier to have a blame game type of idea, where it's easier to blame, to just find something or someone that you can blame easily without really thinking through of the whole process of what's going on with the situation. Sure, there's been a recession, economic recession. Sure, we've dealt with a lot of social ills that are still plaguing in a sense, whether it's the education system, whether it's dealing with the banks or what have you. There's just been a lot that's been going on. So sometimes it's just easier to just find a group or a person or a thing that's easier to blame without necessarily thinking through it. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that has been, I don't know if I would call it surprising, but it's definitely struck me from talking to the different groups who've come in here and who've been doing this, is how many businesses there really are that are owned by people that I guess, and we'll get into this later, like who qualifies as immigrant, for your study, but just how many there are and how many you're not even talking to, like the personal things. They don't have a shop. They work out of their home. They do landscaping or house care or something like that. So they have a business. It's a business, but it doesn't have a shop front, you know. It's just amazing to me. And I started, you know, as I drive through Urbana from time to time, I started looking around going, oh, well, yeah, I guess that probably is, you know, Chinese restaurant or whatever, you know. And it's like, well, that's kind of like most of them in a way, you know. It's most of the businesses, or at least enough that it's pretty overwhelming, the number of people, and that's just in Urbana. That's not counting Champaign, and on campus too. If you drive up and down Green Street, like half the restaurants are I'm guessing immigrant because they're certainly not, you know, Illinois Midwesterners going, yeah, I'm going to open a Vietnamese food, you know, they wouldn't do that. So it's like, it's fascinating.
Well, Tom, if you look back at the history of immigration, you'll notice that immigrants were brought in very strategically to economically help sustain the needs of the nation. So, if anything, although that there's still that need, I do believe that that is going on. I think what we have to understand now that we're not trying to have the same light or negative perception of immigrants that a lot of people had done early on with immigration law. And facilitating those needs, whether it was Chinese laborers that were coming in to build the railroad system, whether you name it, it's happened. So this nation in and of itself, it is really built on different people from different nations coming in and contributing in valuable ways. So
yeah, that's true. And I guess in this area, this town, I was going to say, but this is really three towns, or Urbana, Champaign, and Campus Town, if you want to call it that. We get used to the fact that immigrants are generally foreign students coming here, or professors, or something like that. So it's a very intellectual group. It's a very educated, well-educated group of people. And so it doesn't seem odd here, probably, to our listeners, at least to the radio show, to think of, well, yeah, sure, they're going to start their own business because, yeah, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're whatever kind of professional people. But I think in some surrounding communities, in some smaller towns in different parts of the country, it might seem like kind of a strange thing. Like, well, there's only a handful of people who run businesses, and everybody else is an employee, other than farmers, you know, or something like that. So they're the ones probably buying into the narrative of immigrants as people coming here to take our jobs, because that's what's going on in their area. That's all they see. But in bigger cities, I think, and in places like this, that's not the case. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And I bring this up, and I'm talking about it because one of the goals of this show is to communicate to people about immigration in a broader way, not just give them statistics like X number of people are doing X number of things, but to try to demystify the whole process. Like, immigrants are just people from somewhere else who are coming here. And it's no different. Somebody from Ohio coming here is no different from somebody from Africa or Asia or whatever. It's just they came farther. And maybe they grew up in a place that was very different, but they're still coming here. It's just still somebody else coming here. That's all it is. And I try to get that point across in any number of ways to the listening and viewing audience as much as possible, because there's such a huge narrative, as we were just talking about, counter-narrative about this out there that's just overwhelming people with this negative concept of immigrant. They automatically think somebody's sneaking under a fence and crawling along and maybe bringing drugs and, you know, violence from their own country, or whatever it is they're thinking. I don't know. But
I think you bring up something really interesting, which is that the idea of immigration has to be more broadened. And I think if we just look at it historically, then I think we should start to talk about immigration by beginning to talk about conquests by
Mhm.
beginning to talk about slavery, bringing people from somewhere else to here,
Yeah.
or taking land away from here and making people from this land immigrants in their own land.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
So I think I think we need to broaden that definition, and I think that's I really like the goal that you pointed out of this program. So I think those would be important things to take into account and consider that when we're talking about immigration, it has a long history, and the meaning has changed over time, and we still have the continuation of the effects that those phases of immigration has left us with.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because I think that's right there the reason people think about immigrants in the way that they do, partly, is because there's a whole history of defining who us and them is. Like if you think of in the last, say, 10, 20 years, with the rise of mass media and the internet and all these different things, everything on earth is immigrating or emigrating or whatever you want around. The only one that people are pointing at with any kind of like urgency is people. Ideas are moving around, products are moving around, everything is moving around the world in all sorts of directions, all over the place. But when people do it, suddenly it's like, oh, we can't have this. Everything I buy is made in some other country. I can't think of more than a handful of things that I can actually buy. I tried to do this once. Like, I'm only going to buy stuff made in America. Well, I could buy some food, a little bit of food, but not much. I couldn't buy fruit because that was all from South America. You know what I mean? So it's like everything is moving around the world, and people are like going, "Hey, this is great! I've got kiwi fruit in the middle of winter," but they're not thinking, "Where does this come from? And how did it get here?" People are doing the same thing, but somehow people are dangerous. Ideas aren't so dangerous. Products aren't so dangerous unless it's like poisonous and it's killing your dog or something like that. But people are like, ooh, we got to be worried about this. So that's kind of off track, but that's something that I think about a lot. Is like, why is this? What's this difference? Why such a stark difference between people and stuff?
Or people and capital.
People and capital, yeah.
Because all these companies are moving around. They have their labor sectors in countries all around the world.
Yeah.
They sell their products here. And in fact, I think it's important to go into that, because once we go that route, we discover that in a lot of the cases, the reason why people move is not because they always want to, but also because they're displaced and uprooted, and their land is taken away from them. They're dispossessed from rural areas, so then they move to wherever these factories are to work there, and then they move further. So a lot of the causes of the kinds of migration we are seeing can be brought back to this issue of everything moving around. This globalization, these capital moving around, corporations moving around, products being made in, and why is it problematic? Because the places where these products are being made don't have proper, the workers don't have rights, and they're not paid well, they're kept in bad conditions, and along with that comes with different kinds of national level policies that make people landless. And I think the story is the same over and over if you look at Latin America, if you look at countries in Asia, Africa. So I think it's not much of a digression. It's a very relevant topic.
Well, and something you brought up a minute ago fits with something you just said now about conquest and colonialism. And part of the reason that the conditions are so bad, working conditions are so bad in some of these countries, is because that people have been trained to treat other people that way, trained to treat workers that way, because those workers were at one time colonial subjects who were disposable. You start to see things like that happening in this country now in certain sectors of like farming, agricultural work, things like that, where people are being treated in that same way because they are, once again, disposable. The only reason that the U.S. has what we call, strong work laws and things like that was because it was us working for us. Now that there's a them involved in it, Yeah, well, then we don't have to worry so much about unions and so much about workplace safety and all that stuff. Then the conditions are changing. You look like you really want to say
Well,
that.
you know, Tom, I think the thing, let's talk about that. People.
Okay. Yeah.
People. We're all people.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's part of what's missing in the conversation.
Yeah.
Is that at the end of the day, we all bleed red. At the end of the day, we all want something better for ourselves or our future generations. At the end of the day, we want to be able to be safe. We want to feel comforted, you know, in times of difficulty. We want provision to get around, whether it's transportation or a bike or what have you. But we want those basic needs met as well. We're people.
Yeah.
And I think that also gets lost in translation when you start talking about immigration and immigration law and who should have rights and things like that. Because really, again, also one of the classes I'm taking is human rights and education. And I've learned, and I continue to learn that a lot of what we're discussing, it comes down to understanding just basic human rights. You know, why shouldn't children feel safe? You know, why shouldn't adults feel safe? You know, why shouldn't our society as a whole, there's something that attracts people here to America. You know, we're talking about migration, different reasons for why people leave. And there are also people who leave the United States to go live in other places too. But that's also lost in translation. We never really talk about the other side of how they deal with change or transition and things like that. So this isn't just a United States issue. This is really becoming a universal, almost in a sense, a worldwide issue because there's so much migration going on because of the effects of globalization, because of the effects of whether it's war or something else tragic happening, you know. So I think we need to understand that at the end of the day, a huge part of why we're here is because we're dealing with people, you know, and sometimes we're afraid to deal with the fact that I'm a person just like you're a person, you know. So why shouldn't are we now arguing about who gets to be the safest or feel the safest now at the end of the day? Or are we arguing about, or can we collaboratively work to say, okay, how can we make it safe for everybody?
Yeah.
You know.
It's a difficult question, though, because what constitutes safe for people, I think, is not, I mean, in a very broad sense, it's the same thing. Well, I don't want anybody assaulting me. I don't want anybody taking my stuff. You know, that's safety. But safe to do what? To be how? We see a lot of stuff, I mean, in the recent news, a lot of the police shootings of people just innocent, unarmed. Well, innocent is the tricky part, but definitely unarmed and not as threatening as would require you to kill them. Individuals. Why are they doing that? They're doing that in part, I believe, because they feel unsafe. It's like you are threatening to me just because you're there. There's something threatening about you, so if you do anything that's the least bit provocative, then it's like, oh my God, I have to stop you because you're already a threat to me just walking down the street. So,
but why would I be a threat to you?
That's the thing.
And I think we have to go back again. You talked about colonialism earlier. There's a difference between having a sense of safety, but then there's also a difference between having power. Let's just get down to that, because I think at some point we as people have arrived a sense of power with our own little world of success. So anything that threatens that level of success or perception of success, whether it's having our own house, our own cars, our own backyard, and we have this sense of success, and so that makes us feel powerful. So anything that will come and threaten that level of stability in that power, then it does kind of, in a sense, paint a different picture for some people. That does get to the place where they feel like, whether it's they're in their position, whether it's in the police force, whether in the legal system, or whether it's at the job or businesses, and making sure that, let's talk about women, women not being paid the full salaries as men are being paid. So, so when I talk about safety, it's not so much in the sense of threatening situations necessarily, but yet at the same time, I'm thinking about basic needs. Roof over your head,
Right.
Clean water, things like that. But at the same time, we have to address the inequities that lie within safety, which part of that to me is power.
Yeah.
And how people have obtained power because it made other people unsafe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I'm struggling with wanting to keep on this topic because it's interesting, and the fact that we're drifting away from both your project and from immigration in particular.
Go ahead.
And we only have 5 minutes for the first half of the show, so.
We didn't drift away that much though,
Okay.
because safety was an issue in the area that we were covering.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yes, and we were, the area that our group was looking at was Philo Road corridor.
Mhm.
And one of the perceptions about that area has been that it's unsafe.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Or that's what we heard too. I didn't know that either. And once we started going there, meeting all the different businesses and beginning to interview them and work with them, none of the business owners felt that this was an unsafe place. We didn't feel like that when we were there. Anyway, the reason why I just wanted to bring it back to say that, that the issue of safety did come up in our conversations as well. And it's worth wondering if it had anything to do with the ethnic and racial makeup of that area.
So where did you hear that it was unsafe? Like, where did that come from? Do you remember?
The public perception about this area when we were talking to general people.
So it was common knowledge that it's not a safe area. But so I just want to make sure I understand. So when you went there and you talked to the various people,
We
none of them
talked to the business.
Talked to the business owners. None of them, or few of them, or how many of them? None of them said, "Oh, this is unsafe." Okay. And while you were there, did you ever observe anything that was like, "Oh, watch out for those guys over there. They're kind of creepy." Nothing like that.
Nothing like that.
Is there a high crime incident in that area? Lots going on?
I can't speak for the exact statistics. I think that there have been a number of robberies that have taken place within the last few years, but that can't be the only reason why. I think, like I said before, people need to find something to be able to pinpoint and say, okay, that area is unsafe because of such and such and such. Then there could be underlying tones as to why people might think it's not safe. I don't know. But as my colleague said, none of the business owners ever brought up that as an issue. They never said, we have to hurry up and lock our doors or any of that kind of thing. So, and they've been there for a number of years. So, I can't imagine now if the business owners are feeling that their areas are safe, it's again, perception, how does, and it could be also media perception, whether how it's been reported in the newspapers and things like that, but again,
that's
it's not there.
really interesting. And unfortunately, the first half, can I beg you to stay around for the second half of the hour? For
Sure.
The next show? Because I in order to make this work out and avoid a lot of editing, I have to just sort of end it and then start it up again. Is that okay?
Sure.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. You have been listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU LP, Urbana 104.5 FM and UPTV. We appreciate you joining us, and we hope you will come back again and do it next week. See you then. Bye-bye.